Hello, and I am Quentin Gherkin, the archivist here for the OSUIT Oral History Series. We have a very special guest here, award-winning photographer and instructor Kelly Kerr. Do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Sure, Clinton. My name is Kelly Kerr, and I am a longtime photographer and videographer, and spent time teaching at OSUIT. And now I am on the OSU Stillwater campus as a multimedia producer.
Okay, our first question. What led you to OSUIT?
Well, that's a great question. I had just wrapped a lengthy career as a photojournalist, and the most of that time was at the Tulsa World. And I had just produced a book on the state of Oklahoma, a photography book. And I was kind of looking for some new challenges, something new to do. And I quit at the Tulsa World, and I didn't know really what I was going to do. I had different ideas, but I received a phone call from a guy named Mark Moore, who was teaching photography at OSUIT, and said, "Hey, we have an opening here, and I think you'd be good at it. And why don't you give it some thought?" And I did, and I said, that might be fun. So I threw my name in my hat in the ring, so to speak, and got hired as a photography instructor at OSUIT.
Okay, and next question. Can you please tell us about the photography program that used to be here at OSUIT?
Sure. The photography program at OSUIT uh, was uh, very strong, and I had worked with several people that had graduated out of that program and was very impressed, and they talked very highly of it. So I had some knowledge of the program, but the program was founded by a guy named Clay Allen, who was a longtime photojournalist. And um, I think, as the story goes, he was friends with Bob Klobunis, who was the president of OSUIT years ago. And they started the photography program. And it was basically to teach kids the uh, I guess the art of photography, but more specifically, Clay's background was in journalism, so storytelling, editorial photography was a big thing. And then they added more of a commercial element to it, so advertising, portraiture, family photography, those type of things. So there was really nowhere else in the state that had a photography program that was all encompassing, like OSUIT's program, where students could come and learn editorial style, or they could learn commercial style. And that was unique. And it was really became a feeder program for all of the career techs in Oklahoma. We had lots of students come from all over the state that had experience in the career tech system and was looking for kind of that higher ed opportunity in photography. And OSUIT was kind of the only show in town, and was until they did away with it. So.
Okay, that's cool to hear its history. So the next question, what were your biggest accomplishments working at OSUIT?
Well, the biggest accomplishments were the students. To work with such talented and motivated kids was the best part of it. We had a uh, interview uh, kind of process in place, so students couldn't just drive up to the front door and get started. You had to be accepted into the program. A couple of reasons for that was numbers. We only had two instructors, but also it helped keep the program at a very high quality. We wanted to make sure that students wanted to be photographers as a career. They wanted to do it as a career and wanted to pursue it as a career, and was a passion of theirs. So that was the first thing that the kind of the first gate that they had to come through. But that also gave us students that were highly motivated. And I had a number of students that were just so impressive um, with their skills and their creativity and their ideas. And it was fun for me being in the photography business for 25 years and then showing up and spending time with these young people and allowing them to bring these fascinating ideas and thoughts. And it really, I tell people I learned just as much as the kids did. It was fun, but I would say without reservation, my proudest achievement, and we did some things with the program to make it more robust and those type of things. But at the end of the day, the achievement of the students was really what I'm the most proud of.
Cool. So next question, what were your biggest challenges working at OSUIT?
Well, that's a great question too. I had never taught. And so, you know, going out and doing what I do uh, was easy. It was second nature to me. But to sit down in front of a group of young people and tell them why I do what I do, I had never kind of crossed that bridge. So that was the biggest challenge was to kind of think about, okay, why do I think this way, or why do I operate the camera this way, or why do I do a certain, technique. It was just, like I said, it was second nature. So I'd never thought about it in terms of having to explain it to someone else and have them replicate it or have them try it. Uh, so that was really the biggest challenge was to get the information, how to get the information across to the students in an effective way where they could absorb it and practice it. And so even though I don't teach as much today, I have I have ultimate respect for teachers on any level teaching any curriculum because that's the biggest challenge is to pass along the information in a dynamic way.
Okay, next question. Uh, any accomplishments from students or alumni you'd like to highlight?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I have students, and I don't want to. I'll leave someone out, but the I think the neat thing about our students were they weren't afraid to challenge themselves. So, for example, we had students that they were required to take a semester long uh, internship. And some of the places and photographers that they worked with were just off the charts. We had students go to Los Angeles and New York, had a student go to Australia, uh, Dallas, Kansas City, Chicago, and these photographers that they worked with were all over the charts. They were everything from editorial to commercial to filmmaking. Had one student spend his internship in the Rocky Mountains working on a motion picture, and that turned into a very illustrious career that's still going today. And I found myself being quite envious of some of these students and the things they were getting to do. But at this point, I had the biggest thing is I have students that are former students that are practicing the craft at a very high level, shooting all different kinds of things from weddings to food. We even have a former student that is a photographer in Hawaii, and so just having them out there, making number one, making a living, but number two, chasing their passions. after all this time is I'm just proud of that fact that they were able to see something they wanted and they went for it and to get the same satisfaction out of it that I've been able to receive in my career.
Okay, it kind of segues to next. You mentioned, so what are those impressive photographs students have created for exhibits? You mentioned places like the Rockies and the kind of locales. Let's hear about those pictures.
Yeah, so this student, he just one day rolled in with this guy that he wanted to intern with, and he was doing, and this is kind of a technical term, but he was doing time lapse video, which is what you do is you take a series of photographs consecutively over a long period of time, and then you put them into a timeline, and they create kind of a video, if you will, or a clip, but they're actually photographs. And so they were doing photography, but they would take that photography and turn it um, into movie or video clips, and which gives you a higher resolution of image. And they were doing it in the Rockies. They were doing it at nighttime. They were doing it um, and it wasn't just Colorado. It was literally from Northern California all the way to New Mexico. And some of the things they were doing were just it would just made your jaw drop when you saw it. And then when this motion picture that they were working on came out, it was so beautiful, and the work and the meticulous um, kind of work ethic, not work ethic, but the attention to detail that they put into this thing. Uh, because a lot of these attempts that they were doing um, were, they were relying on time of year, they were relying on the weather, they were relying on, where's the Milky Way located in relationship to the mountains and so it was and all you need was one slip up to mess that up and then you miss the window. So things like that was really incredible. um, I had one student go to Los Angeles and work with a couple of commercial photographers and just had some amazing photography. Had one student that went to Dallas and worked with a fashion photographer, and his work when he came back from his internship, it just elevated into where his work automatically started looking like he was a seasoned professional. It was amazing to watch some of the transformation. So I don't know like any specific photographs that stick out in my mind, but just the body of work that the students were doing um, was truly impressive.
Okay, you kind of did answer this next question. So, next question was about the places they visited, but you already covered
Yeah.
more places, or we covered that.
Well, I just what the internship program we had was a selling point, and I will credit James McCullough was the driving force behind that, former instructor and director there. Uh, but there was literally what we when we got ready to set up the kids for internship, we didn't put any barriers or limitations on where they would go. It was like, if you want to go there, we will do our best to help you get there. So, if you want to go to New York, or if you want to go to Sydney, Australia, or if you want to go to London, or wherever you want to go, we'll help you get there. And I think that just that attitude really helped the kids believe that they could do some of these things and push themselves. And like I said before, a lot of times you could tell when they would come back from internship, um, it not only were they better artists, but you could tell they had matured as people because when you travel abroad or you travel about, it makes you grow up pretty fast, and it was amazing to watch. That was one of the most fun things, is because when they came back for their capstone year, you could really, they had an idea of what they wanted to do, and you could really dive into some heavy duty photography at that point, and they were ready for it.
Okay, so the next question now, how did you feel about the state of the photography program during your time at OSUIT?
Well, that's a great question. It's kind of a loaded question, but that's okay. I think the overriding uh, uh, state of the photography program when I arrived was they were still using a lot of film, and by the time I showed up at OSUIT, I hadn't developed a roll of film in a decade.
Oh, what
The
time period was this?
Well, this would have been in, so I'll give you a little history. The Tulsa World, we went all digital in 97. So we were the first metropolitan newspaper to go all digital as a photography staff. And I arrived at OSUIT in 2009. So um, yeah, they were still a lot of the classes were still all film when I arrived. So I felt like that every day we spent processing film was a day that we were losing ground, because uh, we were training these kids to work commercially, and commercially in the industry, film was not being used. So that was the first thing that we had to change, and everybody was willing to do that. We had to, and I will say this: it was becoming a struggle because to the chemicals, the paper, the film, the all of the things it took to process film was becoming uh, more and more hard to find, especially in bulk. So it was becoming harder to do, and so that made the decision easier to switch to an all digital program. And so that was kind of uh, one of my contributions to the program, was to help it cross that cross that threshold into an all digital program from film.
Okay, so our next question. We have an interesting article in our archives. You won a National Press Photographers Association award, and it was for photographs of bands. Those were really cool and interesting photographs. Can you tell us about those?
Sure, yeah. Well, we we, as at the Tulsa World, we remember the National Press Photographers Association, and um, so we were always sending them photographs, which was fun. But one year, well, for several years, the Tulsa World had a music award show where we would reward local bands and musicians and singers, like the Grammys, or whatever. It was that kind of it was kind of a poor man's Emmys or Grammys. And it was fun. We would have some performers, and we would have some awards, and we would recognize different people, and it was fun. Well, one year I just decided, I took all the bands that year that we invited to perform at the show. So I decided to highlight those bands. And what I did was I created um, kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of movie um, scenes from movies with these bands. And it became the more there was about seven or eight, I think, and the more I got into it, I dove down the rabbit hole and really got into it, and it became a thing of location and um, um, wardrobe and styling and time of day. I remember we shot some in the middle of the night. We shot some just all over town, and it was a lot of fun. And I think the bands really enjoyed it because it really challenged them to um, kind of get away from their, they thought they were really cool and hip. And I asked them to do some silly things, and I think they kind of enjoyed that. But it was fun it was like playing dress up and seeing if I could create these moments from different movies.
Yeah, those were cool for us. So the final question is, I know for OSU Stillwater, you taught at the book Oklahoma Revisit. For those who haven't heard that oral history, can you give us a brief talk about that book?
Sure, absolutely. So, about the time of the Oklahoma Centennial, around 2007, the Tulsa World had done, at that time, maybe two books, and they were just written, written books. And they wanted to do a photo book. And the Lorton family, who owned the Tulsa World at the time, came to me and said, "Would you be interested in doing a book on Oklahoma, a photo book on Oklahoma, celebrating the centennial?" And I said, "I would love to do that. I would just be crazy." And so my thought process was I knew that several books were being done at that time to show how beautiful we think Oklahoma is, which it is. But to me, Oklahoma is a collage. It's a montage of folks, and it kind of, with all these hodgepodges of peoples that have kind of gravitated to the center of the country, uh, whether they were forced here as Native Americans or whether they moved here or whatever it may be. But my idea was just to take a camera, take one camera, and travel the state and see what I can see. And so I went on a pilgrimage, basically. And I didn't have a lot of planning involved. I just rented a car and started driving to every county in the state of Oklahoma. Some photos were planned, some things were events, but most of it was just random chance of me going places and experiencing things. And as I experienced those things, what I tell people is I kind of held a mirror up to the state of Oklahoma and said, "Here's who we are." And, some of it's beautiful, some of it's ugly, some of it's quirky, some of it's interesting, but just it became what it became. And that year, I shot, they just, and so I was going to say that I started out just doing it like a couple days a week. I would take off and go. And then I figured out really fast that I needed to just, for them to cut me loose for the year. And they agreed. They said, "Yeah, just take off." And so they did without me as a daily employee for about a year. And it was fantastic for me, but I ran all over the state. Um, I went to prison for 3 days at the state penitentiary in McAllister. I went to boot camp at Fort Sill and trained with guys that fought in Iraq. I went on a horseback cattle drive. I chased tornadoes. I ate at cafes. I tried to, like I said, it was a pilgrimage through the state. And it really resonated after I got the book together that this book was a little different than what the other books that were being generated, that were just kind of beauty shots, if you will. That these shots were more, hey, this is what Oklahoma really is. And I went to dance halls, I went to garage sales, I went to all kinds of places, and it was a lot of fun. And the book, I tell people I have twins, but the book is my third child, and it was just a great time. And I poured a lot of energy into it, and that's when I poured so much into it. After I got done with it, I was really not burned out, but I was kind of exhausted, and just that's when I needed a change of pace and a change of scenery. And that's why OSUIT meant so much to me because it came along at the perfect time in my career where I was ready for a new set of challenges. And OSUIT provided that for me.
Yeah, that does sound like a cool book. So it sounds like it covered, not just the, natural landscapes, but our culture too. And that's what makes that
Yep.
book sound really cool. So yeah,
Yep.
you answered all the questions. So anything you want to say as we wrap this up?
Well, I will just say this. I am a huge fan of OSUIT. I really feel like that technical education is paramount in today's world. It was years ago, but I think even today, and I think we're seeing that in higher ed more and more. I think we're seeing it here on the Stillwater campus. The college that I work in now in education human sciences, our two biggest programs are nursing and aviation, which are hands-on um, programs. So I'm just a huge fan of that style of learning. And I will say this, it worked. One of my students was my niece, and a traditional university, four-year college was not the fit for her, but OSUIT was the perfect fit for her. The other, I will share this one other thing is I had another student who she was the homecoming queen at Bixby High School, and her father was a physician, and she could literally attend any university in the country, but she chose to come to OSUIT and study photography. And she is the student that I mentioned earlier that is now her business is in Hawaii. So it worked out perfectly for her. So I just think that OSUIT is a necessity, not only for our state, but for the future of education. I really feel like I said, uh, hands-on technical training, and I love the word training, uh, is just going to it's just going to absorb into higher ed, the classical higher ed, and I think we're going to see it more and more and more and more. And that model that has been modeled at OSUIT for years, I think will be the standard moving forward in higher education.
Thank you. Thank you very much for telling us all about the photography program. We are very
Sure,
grateful to have you host an oral history.
you bet. I'm glad to do it. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Oh.